You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. Volatility Views is brought to you by MIAX, one of the fastest options platforms in the world. MIAX is now trading options on the SPIKES Volatility Index, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction for confident trading, all for competitive exchange fees. It's time to make a change and give yourself an edge with SPIKES. Learn more about SPIKES at www.miaxoptions.com/spikes. Options involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for information purposes only and are not intended to provide and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
Welcome back to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting, ever-interesting Options Insider Radio Network. We've got a lot of great links to produce a lot of fun content for you guys, including beaming at you this week. If we sound a little bit different, coming at you from our southern studio here, mid-south, really, not full south. We're down here in Washington, D.C. for the Securities Traders Association Market Structure Conference 2019 here. It's a mouthful, I know.
Oh, that's the can't miss conference of the year.
It's a hot one with all the kids. The kids, they line up.
Nothing like market structure. Although I got to say, if there was ever a week to show up for market structure, this has to be it, right? With all the news, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of news on the brokerage side, on all different sides of the space. So it was a hot one. Hopefully you guys, probably by the time you listen to this, you're already hearing a lot of my conversations I've been having down here. They're already hitting the network, so hopefully you guys are enjoying them. Did our usual broad cross-section of guests. Also recorded some fun shows down here, including our regulars like Twifo and Option Block. So hopefully you guys enjoyed those as well. Mixing it up a little bit different. No live streams this week. I apologize for that, but just wasn't able to make it happen with all the connectivity we have going on. Of course, no live stream today as well. So if you like your regular dose of Vol Views live, we'll be back next week. All the shows will be back live next week. And that tinny voice over there can only mean one thing. I am joined by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian. Mr. Meatball, how go things? Holding down the fort from you back in Chicago, sir.
Not too bad. The weather has been almost as volatile as the market here over the last couple of days. We had 80 degrees on Tuesday, and it's 50 degrees now. Meanwhile, the market was, about a 14 on Monday morning or Tuesday morning, and got up to 21 yesterday morning. So lots of funness floating around.
Lots of funness indeed. Yeah, it was pushing 90 when I left Chicago on Tuesday, and then down here all week it's been about 95. So it's been crazy town here. Crazy town in the markets too. So let's get to it. A little bit of the old volatility review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Vol Review. If you can't tell by now, it's going to be a little bit of a different show. Like I mentioned, I've been down here in D.C. all week. Haven't been glued to my screens back in the studio, but hopefully you guys are liking all that content we've been sending your way. But as Mr. Meatball alluded to, it has not been I go away for a couple of days and you guys proceed to break the market without me. Things got pretty crazy, pretty topsy-turvy, as the Meatball alluded to earlier this week. Peaking out around, I believe, 21.5, close to it, on Wednesday or so out there in VIX cash land. Spikes seeing similar levels. And now, of course, fast forward a couple of days, and apparently all is right with the world again. We rallied yesterday in the market, and coming into today's show, markets rallying even stronger today. So apparently all that tumult, all that madness, still some of the after effects of of the, shall we say, madness that unfolded last show, when, of course, we had all the fear about delisting Chinese companies and all sorts of madness going on over there. By the way, I had an interesting conversation with down here with someone who trades OTC ADRs. And so the last week, as you can imagine, was pretty crazy for them. Look for that on the network coming soon. But today, of course, everything firmly in the green except for vol. NASDAQ leading the charts to the upside, up about 1%. Actually, exactly, just ticked up. So exactly 1%. S&P up nearly 1%, 0.95%. And the Dow, ever the laggard, only up a mere 0.88%. Of course, all that green means a little bit of red on the vol screen. Like I mentioned earlier this week, VIX cash and spikes charging up to the upside. Now come into showtime, we're seeing VIX cash at about, looks like it was around a 1775. We're at still about 1775 or close to it. So that puts it up almost unched from last show, up about a quarter of a point. And spikes is at about an 18, which is exactly unched from where we were last week. Mr. Meatball, I don't know if you know this, but we had a buddy Brian Overby from OPR on our network and also from Ally Invest on the show last week, and he guessed a 20 handle. He guessed a 20 handle for VIX, and so when VIX hit it this week, he got very excited, and he wrote into me saying, "Hey, what do I win? What do I win?" And I said, I had to tell him, pump the brakes a little bit. This is not a game of what can VIX touch throughout the week. It is a game of where VIX can settle out at the end of the week. That is where the challenge truly lies. And now looking a lot better for my prognostication, shall we say. I was at 1755 last week, so his 20 even is now a mere pipe dream in the rearview mirror, whereas I'm looking pretty good. Your buddy Mr. Rock Lobster, he guessed a 9.97.
Yeah, you're like almost right on the head right now. The cash index is 17.7. And Spikes is 17.9. Yeah, you're a stone's throw away.
Some might say I could even just declare early victory now. I won't do that, but I just want to put it out there.
No, that's a mistake. What did Andrew guess? I wasn't here for that.
Andrew guessed a 9.97. Actually, what happened is I think he muted himself, had to drop off at the last second, so he got me picking for him. Which was not a good way for him to go. Not a good look. We always punish that here on the show. But so yeah, he guessed he's a little off this week. But yeah, Mr. Meatball, obviously it's been a pretty tumultuous week out there. Our old friend VVIX also moving, got up to about over 100 again this week, and now it's selling off about 4 points, actually down 8 points from last show, down about 96. So things are moving. What was catching your eye out there this week, sir?
Yeah, it was interesting. We on Wednesday at the bottom of the market, we started to see VVIX, and if they had a scroll running, the Viking, start to back off, and they ended up down on the day with the S&P down 50, and we've continued to see VVIX really, got a little blip up on the open yesterday when that ISM services number was terrible, and then we have now had a kind of an 80-point rally off of the lows from yesterday over what amounts to about a 24-hour period. Yesterday, the low for the S&P 500 was 28.55, a mere 17 points from the 200-day moving average, and just off the lows from August. And in a matter of days, we're actually right back to almost touching the 50-day moving average, which is $29.43, and $5 away, and probably heading for another run to 3,000 as all those interest rates start to change, and maybe this is the news that gets us to be a little more lovey-dovey with our friend Xi in China.
Everyone's waiting for that moment, right? Everyone thinks this is it. This is going to be the moment of the denouement of the end of our trade war here, and that we're always disappointed. There's a lot of broken hearts here so far. A year and change now into this trade war, and it doesn't seem like the end is in sight, at least anytime soon. You know what is in sight, though? You kind of mentioned the Viking. Of course, touched on it last week. We do, on the future side, there is hopefully an endpoint in sight, as they touched on last week. Looking for November 18th for the launch of that Spikes future. So a little bit later. They were hoping October and November. You know how these things work with the CFTC. You got to roll with the government schedule on these. So November 18th seems like that's the date we'd be able to sink our teeth into all things Spikes futures. On the VIX futures curve, things are a little bit active. We're seeing, like I said, the cash was right around 1770 or so, 75 coming into the beginning of the show here. And we're seeing, it looks like it was about a half a handle between that cash and that front month future, and a little north of a point, about 1.3 points for 2 months out. Anything catch your eye in the vagaries of the VIX futures curve this week, sir?
I mean, it was really moving. It has flipped from a really steep contango to no longer to what amounts to a backwardation, to then back into an itty bitty contango. Although we still have kind of that little baby hiccup in Nov D's, but even that is starting to really dissipate. You have a really nice spread from cash to future to Octanove. And so, we're essentially back in a contango, and the market is giving us the all clear. I'd be less than shocked to see the VIX get back to 16 over the next day or two.
Yeah, fascinating stuff going on here this week. We expect the VIX futures curve to be a little bit rocking and rolling in weeks like this, and that's pretty much exactly what we saw. And if the worm proceeds as it is right now, you're right, we could be back to exactly where we were even by early next week here. Let's go out to Spikes Land. Actually, a pretty active week out here in Spikes Land, particularly on the 1st earlier this week. So, of course, that was Tuesday. We saw, looks like our 1x2 friend, Mr. Meatball. He can't get enough. He's coming in for more, this time out in Nove 1827, which I believe, yes, those are still the same strikes that he had on before. And it looks like he wasn't closing. He put on more, 7,500 by 15,000 times, doing the Nove 18s for 260 against the Nove 27s for 90 cents. Those are both, shall we say, biased towards the offer, but it looks like this guy's doing the old traditional 1x2 that we've seen going up out here for quite some time. So that means, looking at the OI out there right now, looks like it has indeed bumped up quite a bit, because he is opening. Yes, it has. So it's like there were about 23,000 contracts open as of last show, and this week it looks like it's about 45. So 46, actually. So it has pretty much doubled exactly. So he liked that 1x2, Mr. Meatball. He decided to put it on some more. So number one, obviously, with the bullet out there, the Nove 27s for 27,000 contracts. Number two now are the Nove 18s, so 13,500. So interesting that he would choose this week to double down on that 1x2. Obviously we saw the nice spike, and then, pun intended, and then coming off again this week. Do you like that 1x2 doubling down for twice as much this week, Mr. Meatball?
I mean, I think that, no.
That was my thought. Like, why is he coming in to double down on this now? I can see maybe trying to unwind it a little bit, because you had a little bit of a spike. You can take some of it off.
I mean, you would have thought he would have gone the other way and rolled it back, or changed his strikes, or whatever. Because it had kind of worked in his favor, and instead he, what day did this trade go up? If it went up Monday, I like it. Tuesday before we blew up, or after we blew up?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Let me look here at the old mystery of time and sales. 9:43 in the morning on Tuesday.
You know what? Then that's 9:43 Eastern time. That is a great trade. I will say. Let me look here. Yeah, if that went up that means it went up 9:43 Eastern. That's before that ISM number came out. So officially, good job, good sir. I like your trade. You should have. Although what I will say is, just kind of looking at, the P&L flow of these options, you had an excellent opportunity to unwind this sucker.
Yeah. I like it better if he's taking some off at the end. He puts some on, fine, but take it off when you get the opportunity, right?
Yeah, I really like this if he had taken it off on, on the second at its peak when it was absolutely working in his favor.
Yeah. I mean, we say it even if, and obviously this guy's doing this to hedge against some other short position, but even if he's doing that, you still need to take off your hedge at the opportune time. That's kind of part of the battle.
Yeah, or tell you what, sell a few of flatten your delta up. I don't care what you do something. Sell a few. Maybe he sold a future, and we didn't know in bits. Because they do get that cross margin. I think that, one of the things Andrew and I are talking about is, and you tell me whether you want to join in our book, is we want to do a book that is full of cheat sheets and isms from full of option pit and wisdom. We could make it the option pit option insider book of wisdom.
Yeah. You sound like your buddy, the Rock Lobster. Do something. Go out there and do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And we could just do isms in the end, words of wisdom.
Like rules of thumb, cheat sheets, guides, what not to do. I like that idea.
When something's working in your favor, when something's really working in your favor, do something. That is a great ism. Or we could do a calendar. What if we did a daily calendar with trading isms?
Oh, do we have to be the photos for the calendars in every month?
No. We could do like little trading facts with it.
We like it more now. Okay. Men of Options calendar. You don't think that would sell well? Get Rock Lobster there with his one eye going. It'd be great. It'd be good stuff.
Oh, yeah. That'd look beautiful. Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Let's get One-Eyed Willie and the physical beauties that are you and I in front on a calendar.
I have often joked with the Rock Lobster for years. If he writes a book, it has to have one of two titles. It has to be Get Your Juice for Free or Do Something. Those are the two titles that he's only allowed to use in his book. So I'm glad to see you guys are finally approaching that subject. We are also approaching the subject of VIX options. Let's look at what was overall the big picture coming into today, what the big open positions are here. Not a ton actually open out there. Obviously, a lot has come off the board, mostly ACK out there now. Looks like, let's see, number 10 of our top 10 here, the ACK 40 calls still out there, 141,000 open there. Number 9 going out to Nove, our first, and I believe, only Nove on the list here. Nove 30 calls, 141,000 of those as well. So only about 30-odd contracts separating those two. Number 8, the ACK 20s, 153. Number 7, the ACK 28s, 169. And then number 6, our first and only put on the list, the ACK 15s, 169,000 contracts open there. Number 5, the ACK 26s, nice little healthy strip of ACK here going on this week. ACK 26s, 172,000 contracts open. Number 4, back to the 30s, the ACK 30s, 179,000 there. Number 3 here, the first and only Dees on the list here, the Dees 21s, about 212 open there. Number 2 here, back to ACK 23s, 220,000. Rounding out the top 5 here, only about 250,000 contracts for number 1, or top 10, I should say. Only about 250,000 contracts for number 1, which is pretty light for VIX, 256,000 of the OCK 25s, total of about 7.5 million contracts open, about 5.7 million on the calls, about 1.8 million on the puts. Mr. Meatball, as I mentioned at the top of the show here, I've been locked in a studio for 3 days, chatting with folks, so I haven't been parsing the VIX, their VIX options, sir. Any trades catching your fancy over the course of this week as we were moving hither and yon?
Lots of call selling on Wednesday afternoon. In terms of VIX this week, I really have not seen a lot. We had a customer actually on Thursday morning buying the right after ISM came out. The customer bought the VIX OCK 16 puts for 28 cents, not a ISM right after ISM, not the ISM services came out. He bought 10,000 the OCK 16 puts for 28 cents. That's not I'm going to say that's not a terrible trade, good sir. No, not at all.
Yeah, that's not bad. Definitely in the light of what happened in the latter portion of the week, that one seems like a fairly juicy scoop. I like it.
Yeah, it was. Looking to see if there's anything else that I've got now. Hindsight 2020, I wish I'd have closed. I have like a little 15-16 1x2 on. I wish I'd kind of put that, covered my I had a 14-15 1x2 on in VIX. I wish I'd have covered my 14 puts.
Hindsight always is 2020, sir. Anything else lighting up your tape in VIX land, sir?
Not. Let me see what the biggest trades for the day are, and I'll.
It was a surprisingly light week, all things considered.
It really is.
When I checked in a couple of times when we were doing option block this week, I was pulling up some VIX, and I was kind of surprised. Even yesterday, the indices were lighting it up yesterday, all hitting their ADV, if not more, by the time the show came around, and VIX had like 160,000 contracts up.
So, the biggest trade on the day looks like a buyer of the OCK 20, probably a seller of the OCK 20 calls, a seller of the NOV 32 calls, and probably a seller of the NOV 26 calls. Those are the biggest trades from the day today. Not a lot of other stuff out there right now. Let me see what if I can find anything else. But it's not been that interesting.
This is a week everyone was playing in the broad indices and not really in the vol products, it seems, except for our 1x2 friend. That was kind of one of the bigger prints of the week, and it was in spikes. Let's look here to our old friend VXX. It kind of had a whole lot of nothing net from our last show. Of course, in between there, it shot up and then came back down. Right now, we're up about not even half a point from where we were last week, right around 24.75. So week to week, not a heck of a lot, but in the interim, things were popping off. Let's see what's open out there, the big top 10 positions in VXX land. Number 10 is a call, 22,000 of the NOV 35s. Number 9, also 22,000 of the OCK 20 puts, our first put on the list. Number 8, OCK 33 calls for 23,000 of those bad boys. Number 7, the Jan 22s, 26,000 there. Number 6, the OCK 22 puts for 27,000 contracts open. Number 5, the Jan 14 puts. That's some aggressive erosion there. 29,000 and change open there. Number 4, the OCK 20 and a half puts, 30,500 open there. Number 3, the Jan 22 puts, 34,400 of those. Number 2 here, OCK 32 calls, taking the number 2 spot this week with about 38,000 contracts open. And number 1 with a bullet out here. Oh, someone is... I don't want to laugh because this has been a repeated theme out here, Mr. Meatball. We always talk about the long-term puts in VXX. Right? That's kind of the cliche trade out there now. But someone for a while there now has been going extremely short-term with these puts, and that's the case again today. The number 1 position right now in VXX are the 23 half puts expiring today. 43,000 of those.
Jeez. Well, I got bad news.
Yeah. I hate to see this. We saw this on, I think it was the 27th expiration, was it as well? It might have even been, we saw the puts and calls there. People are throwing away a lot of money on very near term
Yeah. Those were, I mean, at the time, I'll be honest, at the time, a couple days ago, those were really, 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 really cheap. That front month vol in VXX has been way too cheap for the last few weeks. And, if the guy did it tied up, he's actually up a lot of money on that spread. Because earlier in the week, like Friday, Monday, VXX October 4 was completely oversold. The implied volatility was just dirt cheap. It looks like the bulk of the volume. I'm looking at the open interest here. Looks like the bulk of this went up on the 30th and the 1st. So it would have gone up Friday and the volume went up Friday and Monday and Tuesday, and hoping that it was tied up, because if it was done tied up, they're in a position to have done really well if they sold some of their stock on the way up, or if they did it delta neutral, they're a happy camper.
Yeah. If they hopefully for their case, they did it 1-to-1, in which case they're very happy. If they did it delta neutral, maybe not so much. So not a ton of juice on these. They went up for, looks like a bunch of them went up for 25.5 cents on the first there. So yeah, that's going to leave a mark. But you could, like I said, you could make it up depending on what delta you're looking at here on these bad boys when you put them up. But you got some of that back, hopefully, if they went up tied. I like being optimistic with these, because otherwise.
Yeah, I'm trying to give the guy the benefit of the doubt.
Otherwise, looking at VXX OI lately just makes me sad. So hopefully, let's hope that that guy had his stock, he got it off, and hey, maybe VXX could reverse aggressively by the end of the day, and he could make it back on the options too. I don't think so, but hey, crazier things have happened. Speaking of crazy things, I joke, of course, but let's get to some of you guys with a little bit of your volatility voicemail.
It's time to share your thoughts and opinions with your fellow volatility traders. It's time to check the volatility voicemail. Make your voice heard by dialing 779-669-4VOL. Posting a comment on the optionsinsider.com, sending an email to questions@theoptionsinsider.com, or posting your questions to twitter.com/options. or facebook.com/theoptionsinsider.
All right, welcome to the Vol voicemail. You guys are always asking for more questions on the show. We're going to give you some more. Give you what you asked for here. Never let it be said we don't listen to our audience. Tintin, he asked, I think this came in last week, I don't think we had time for it. He wanted to know why the market wasn't pricing in more vol as a result of the Saudi oil attacks. So that's a question we asked right after it happened. We said, why isn't the market pricing in more vol? They seem like they took the Saudis at face value that they're going to restore most of that production, and we didn't see a big move as a result. We saw a slight move in WTI, but then it came right in oil and Brent. Brent had a little bit more of a move, obviously, but crude didn't really even reflect it, let alone VIX. So it was kind of a shrug, and it was kind of interesting, and now already the market has moved on to the next 5 things. And so the Saudi attacks, they seem like a distant memory. Do they not, Mr. Meatball?
They do. And, I mean, can you imagine what this would have done years ago? And now there's so much oil production, it doesn't even matter.
Oh, it would have been cataclysmic.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think that any of those kind of oil events you want to sell, don't you think?
Apparently that's what the market did. And if you did that worked out pretty well in your favor. WTI is back down well below the 55 handle, 56 handle now. So I think it threatened 60 ever so briefly with that event. And then it kind of maybe got a little bit north of it, but it came right back off again. We've been talking for a while on our Twifo show about how you can't get a bid for those upside calls to save your life. Even that event didn't really do it. So that's not going to do it. Wiping approximately 5% of global oil production off the board, if that's not going to do it, give you a bid to the upside, I don't know what is. 10%? I don't know. I don't know what that takes at that point. So, yeah, that was a bit of a weird one. I'm kind of with you, Tintin. I would have thought there would be more. that's why Brian was going for a 20 handle in his crystal ball for this week. He thought there should be more out there as well. And the market, at least so far, not pricing that in. Let's see. Side losed. That's a good handle. Side losed. This is interesting. We talked about this on, I think it's referring to this chart we talked about last week, Mr. Meatball. An interesting ratio. I believe it was a journal who tweeted it out. And it was a chart of the ratio of the short-term VIX, so VXST, versus traditional VIX. So effectively, you're talking 9-day versus 30-day vol. And they found that chart of that relationship to be kind of interesting. Looks like Side Lows agrees. He says, I found that VXST to VIX ratio you guys discussed on the last show extremely interesting. Thank you. Well, you're welcome there, Side Lows. We aim to help. I kind of joked on the show. I don't know how much utility I find in that, because if the front end of the futures curve is going crazy, which is kind of what that graph's meant to show you, you could see that probably much easier in other ways and much more immediately. You can look at the futures and say, hey, something's crazy here. You don't need that VXST to VIX ratio, but maybe there's more use to it than I think. Mr. Meatball, is that a ratio you ever look at?
It's a lot. It's very similar to kind of looking at, it's not that different than looking at a futures curve, right? Or a contangoed futures curve. So yeah, I mean, I could see how someone who doesn't want to look at the futures curve all the time could use what amounts to the cash curve to recreate the futures curve.
Yeah, I suppose in that use case, you're not glued to your VIX future screens all day the way we are for this show and other things. You want to just glance at something to give you some sort of sense of what's going on out there. Contango, is it backward? Is it crazy? A graph like that could have some utility. So I walk back my dismissive comments from last week. I mean, for me, not that useful because I can go look at the futures. But if that's not your bag, or you want to just kind of have more of a passive at a glance what's going on out there, I could see some utility for that. So then clearly Side Load here agrees. Let's see. Jerry Banks wants to know, actually a timely question. He says, do you have any insight into whether the SIBO will ever bring back RVX? I missed that product. If you don't know what RVX is, listeners, that was the long-lost, much bemoaned Russell Volatility product, a.k.a. was the Russell, the VIX of the Russell 2000. So it was small-cap VIX. And you might say to yourself, that sounds pretty cool because small caps inherently more volatile than large caps. And it was pretty cool. And we were effectively the only show that ever talked about it back when it was live. A few years ago now, back we partnered with the folks at Russell. We talked RVX every week. We loved it. We were waiting for it to take off. Never really did. There were some issues behind the scenes with market makers and liquidity and all those the devil's always in the detail with those new products. But we do the TWIFO program every week with our friends over there at FTSE Russell again. And we talk, I make it my duty to bring up RVX on that show every week because I miss it. I want them to bring it back. In fact, I had the SIBO in here in the studio with me this week, and I kind of grilled them on RVX again. So when are we going to see some RVX? So you'll be happy to know, Jerry, I have your back. I did ask that question, and in the past, they were kind of dismissive of it. This time, it seemed like they're a little more open to that conversation. So I won't say, I don't have any secret insight for you other than what I just shared, but I won't say we're going to see it in the next 3 to 6 months, but I think we might see it back sooner than you might think, which would be cool. I remember we talked about it back on the show back in the day, Mr. Meatball, but it didn't get a lot of traction behind it. Is that something you think there'd be a use case for, bringing back the old RVX?
I mean, I think so, especially if they can get the Russell guys to tighten up their spreads. I think that I'd be more interested in maybe bringing back the NASDAQ future than the Russell, especially as the NASDAQ and the S&P have seen their correlations really kind of start to break a little bit, with the NASDAQ 100 being so heavy about 4 or 5 stocks. So I would love to see something like that. But you can never have too many vol products is what I would say. But how about the market makers in the Russell itself and the NASDAQ itself tighten things up? Because really, the RVX and a VXN, part of the reason why maybe those have not taken off is that their products are a lot more active in the ETF than they are in the index, which is very different than SPX, which, while it has a ton of volume in SPY, does just copious amounts of volume in SPX. You really can't make the same argument for NDX and the Russell 2000. And there are some people that I think bear some blame that wear jackets right now.
Yeah, that was one of the issues with the original incarnation of the product. Hopefully we can get that stuff resolved. It's not exactly like there are a gaggle of liquidity providers to throw at it these days. There's fewer every year. So that's an issue that needs to be certainly confronted.
Oh, speaking of liquidity providers, you know what you missed?
What did I miss?
Your favorite liquidity provider is naming a museum here in Chicago after himself.
Oh, would that be our friends at Citadel?
Yeah, the Ken Griffin Museum of Science and Industry.
Oh, really? He took over the Museum of Science and Industry. Wow.
They are renaming the Museum of Science and Industry after Ken Griffin.
I know he already has the Children's Hospital over there, so why not add some more to his stable of self-named things?
I mean, seriously. I guess the way to get over a really messy divorce is to name museums after yourself.
Slap your name. Isn't that what they did on that show Billions too? Doesn't he go out and just buy a bunch of different buildings at universities just to
I think so.
Slap his name on them. So there you go. The self-naming trend, listeners, continues in earnest. I know you spent a bunch of money for the sidewalk or the lakefront path there as well. So lots of fun nuggets going on.
There you go.
One nice memory.
Good. Hey, Mr. Griffin, we love you. Thank you for your donation. We don't mean to, we don't love you, but thank you for your donation. We don't mean to poke fun at your generosity. It's just having been on the receiving end of how you made all your money. At least there'll be one nice thought I'll have about you when I take my son to go look at the toy trains at the Museum of Science and Industry.
Well said, sir. As we keep on rolling to our final segment, it's time to get dangerous. It's time to go into the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, welcome to the Crystal Ball, listeners. This is the portion of the show we get a little crazy, we get a little wild, we get a little wacky, and we attempt to predict what the vol gods hold in store, and dare I say it, Mr. Meatball, our frame of reference here on the show for a bullseye is about 0.10 away, and I am pretty freaking close to that level right now.
So, right as we speak right now, I've got a VIX index of 17.65. So,
all right, there you go. Just ticked down. Mine's a little delayed. I think it says 17.67. So I will take that. I will take that bullseye.
17.64 now. I just got another tick. So
there we go.
I'm gonna give you the bullseye here.
Brian was so excited earlier. It's like I said, you know what? I've been playing this game for a while. I know how it works. Got to hold your horses. And see, that's the challenge. Predicting the end of the show, not what VIX can touch during the week. We can all play that game. But the challenge is the precision. So yeah, a bullseye, a very rare and challenging bullseye. I will take that. All right, I'll take a nice bullseye this week. Mr. Rocklobster, I should say, unfortunately, his 9.97 did not float the muster this week. And Brian with his 20, he got close, but no cigar. Then I'll have to send him an email giving him a hard time after this because he was so excited. He was sure he won. All right, let's see here. So now the question is, how do I follow up this bullseye? And in our old friend Spikes, let's pull up right here, see exactly where we are in Spikes land right now. We are at a 1783, so pretty darn close out there as well. See, this is I was feeling a little bit off. This was about a point, not even a point, a little bit less. It was about half a point, quarter of a point lower than where we were last week is what I guessed for this week. The market's crushing the vol. I'm not feeling that much more of a crush than where we are. I could easily see things coming back up there. But I will say that, tell you what, I will go this far and no farther. I'm going to say 16, I'm going to bump it up, 1665 for this time last week. So not quite a full point of juice coming out. I think we'll erode, we'll pop back up, we'll come back off again towards the end of the week, and we'll be right around 1665 this time next week. Mr. Meatball, that leaves the door wide open. You want to go lower? You want to go higher? You want to go 1666? What are you doing?
I'd been thinking 16 and a half when you started talking. So I'm going to have to fade you even harder. And I'm going to, let me look here. I'm going to go.
Good thing I didn't say 1655, which I was initially going to do.
Yeah, no, I'm very lucky there. Let's see. What was the low that we touched on the 30th? It was 1579. So I'm going to go with, or the first. The low on the first was 1579. That's what I'm going to go with.
That's a reasonable approximation, sir. A reasonable bit of analysis. I can't fault you for that. So there you go, listeners. A pretty decent range for next week. 1665 for me on the upside, playing the Russell Rhodes game, going on the upside, even though downside from where we are right now. And Mr. Meatball doing 1579. Let us know what you think. Hey, we got a rare bullseye this week, so join in the celebration. We'll see if you guys can hit a bullseye. It's more challenging than you think. You can't celebrate too early in this game because Crystal Ball, it breaks hearts. All right, but unfortunately that music means we have come to the end of an epic almost live to tape from DC episode here. Mr. Meatball, before we go, sir, if folks are intrigued by what's cooking in the land of the pit, they want to learn more, maybe they want to talk to you directly, take some classes, where should they go, what should they do?
Yeah, so we actually have completely restructured our Option Pit Silver membership. It is now a totally different product, way easier to follow, way easier to manage, way more enjoyable. You're going to love it.
What's different? Give us a quick synopsis. What's different about it?
Well, so, it used to be kind of like a little chat every day, and then I would post like a 3-minute video. What I'm doing now is I'm going to be writing a weekly report about, 8 to 10 pages long. Mark, I'll put you on the distribution list. And I'm going to spend about 2 pages looking at macro, looking at index, a page kind of discussing overall volatility, the VIX index itself, and then about 3 to 5 pages covering a specific stock, the structure of the options around that stock, and then some basic and advanced trade ideas to go around with that stock, and then a kind of what we'll call our trade of the week that I would do with that stock. And that is going to be something we track, monitor, and hold. And it will come with text messaging and live text support. You'll be able to kind of go on our website and go internet chat directly with us about what's going on and what questions you might have around the trade. And we're going to text you when we open and close the trades themselves.
Wow, look at you getting all tech savvy over there. I like it. Maybe I want a little Option Pit in my text inbox every day. That sounds like a fun little reminder. Ding, buy, ding, sell. That sounds kind of fun.
I know. It's going to be awesome.
That sounds like a plan. So check it out, optionpit.com, or email him directly, mark@optionpit.com. That's the place to go to try out this news, brand spanking new silver course, listeners. Check it out. Sounds pretty interesting. And, of course, Spikes continues to be interesting. One of the bigger trades this week going up in Spikes land this week. The future, of course, coming Nov 18th. If you want to see all the details for yourself, MyAx.options.com/spikes. Or just type in MyAx and Spikes into your browser. Guess what? Google will take you right there. Cool little video. It has all the quotes, everything else you might need if you want to trade yourself some spikes. And on behalf of our friends over there at MyAx, who might even be down here this week, I haven't seen them, but they're traveling around. And, of course, the Meatball. We'll throw the Rock Lobster in there, too. And Brian from last week, just because I know he's so heartbroken right now over coming so close, only to fail so miserably. And indeed myself. Who got the bullseye? I just want to remind you out there, got the bullseye. And, of course, we'll see you back here next week for more Option Block on Monday and all that fun stuff throughout the week. Then we're right back here again on Friday for more Volatility Views.
Volatility Views is brought to you by MyAx, one of the fastest options platforms in the world. MyAx is now trading options on the Spikes Volatility Index, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction for confident trading, all for competitive exchange fees. It's time to make a change and give yourself an edge with Spikes. Learn more about spikes at www.myxoptions.com/spikes. Options involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for information purposes only and are not intended to provide and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.